1 Samuel 25, after going into the death of Samuel, briefly, verse 2. Now there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel, and the man was very rich. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. The name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. And she was a woman of good understanding and beautiful appearance. But the man was harsh and evil in his doings. He was of the house of Caleb. Then when, verse 4, when David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep, David sent 10 young men. And David said to the young men, go up to Carmel, go to Nabal, and greet him in my name, and thus you shall say to him who lives in prosperity, peace be to you, peace to your house, and peace to all you have. So it says peace a lot there. That's shalom. Shalom, shalom, shalom. And shalom, it's there's more than the English word peace. Shalom communicates well-being, prosperity, things going well, all is well. Yeah, kind of abundance and just, yeah, that kind of thing. So he's wishing shalom for all that he has, him and all that he has. 7, now I have heard that you have shears, your shepherds were with us, and we did not harm them, nor was there anything missing from them all the while they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we come on a feast day. Please give whatever comes to your hand, to your servants, and to your son David. David was, by now, he's probably in his late 20s, because he becomes king when he's 30 years old. And so he's probably in his late 20s, mid or late, probably more late, I'm guessing. And the fact that he says, like, to your son, that kind of implies usually that you're at least a bit younger. But 9, so when David's young men came, they spoke to Nabal according to all these words in the name of David, and waited. Then Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David, and who is the son of Jesse? There are many servants nowadays who break away each one from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my meat that I have killed for my shears, and give it to the men when I do not know where they are from? So David's young men turned on their heels and went back. They came and told him all these words. Then David said to his men, every man gird on his sword. So every man girded on his sword, and David also girded his sword. And about 400 men went with David, and 200 stayed with the supplies. So, when you have this much, we saw in verse 2 that this man is very rich. He has like 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. And if you recall, like Job, now Job was way earlier. Job lived around Abraham's time. So this was, that was like 1,000 years earlier. So there is a difference in time period, but Job, he had a few thousand like sheep and camels or maybe camels and goats and things like that. So the fact that this man has 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, that's really wealthy. Like it says there, he's very rich. And so when you have that much flock, you need them to, get grass and all that stuff all over the place. You usually have to send them out. And you see this in Genesis where, like you see this with Jacob, where he has his sons that are out there, and then remember Joseph is sent to them. And you see this with like Abraham and his nephew, Lot, where they had so much flock and stuff that they had to separate because, just like food, your animals need food. They eat grass and stuff. And, by the way, grass-fed cows are better, they say. But anyways, naturally you eat grass. It's healthy. And so that's just the option. So then this Nabal, he has his, of course he has a lot of servants, and he has them sent out to have his animals eat. And while they're out there, there are times, like in the book of Job, where there are raiders who come and they kill the servants and they take the flock away. That's common. And so in this context, David and his men, they're protecting them. We'll see more later. But they protected his flocks and things like that. And so, we showed you kindness like this for some time. Now, they need food. And so, please show some kindness, share some food. But Nabal, he would have heard about David, because when you look at his response, verse 10, who is David and who's the son of Jesse? There are many servants nowadays who break away each one from his. So he's kind of like, he had heard about David a bit. And he's kind of like indirectly slandering him. Basically, I kind of know like you're one of the breakaways from the master and like rebellious, that kind of thing. And so David gets furious. Every man gird his sword. And he's going with his 400 men. It's a small army. 14. Now one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, Look, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master. He reviled them. But the men were very good to us, and we were not hurt, nor did we miss anything, as long as we accompanied them when we were in the fields. They were a wall to us, both by night and day. All the time we were with them, keeping the sheep. So do you see this here? This test of testimony. In a way, if David was evil, he could have like just slaughtered the servants and then took away all the flock. But he does the opposite of protecting. So 17, now therefore know and consider what you will do, for harm is determined against our master and against all his household. For he is, that's our master Nabal, he's such a like scoundrel, or literally it's a son of Belial, so son of a worthlessness, that one cannot speak to him. So even the servant, like, it's to the point where the servant himself can directly say to the wife of the master this kind of thing. So it's basically, you can see the context that he is known as this like worthless guy. We're going to see later he gets drunk and he's all partying and stuff, and yeah, he's in a bad place. And by the way, just real quick, when you think about the situation, how on earth is it that you're going to come to see Abigail? She's like, I would say she's like at least one of I think she's the most like biblically beautiful, like attractive woman in the Bible when it comes to women. Now I know there are a lot of godly women, recorded, but when you look at her conduct right here, it's just, it's amazing. She has biblical attraction. Like men that are mature and that know what true beauty is like, you can't not be attracted to this kind of woman. Like seriously. But how on earth is it that she was married to this kind of like douchebag or this kind of worthless guy? We don't know exactly, obviously, but whatever reason it is. Unfortunately, this is so common where it's more common to see like biblically beautiful, mature, good women end up getting married to such scoundrels like this that are just horrible. There's so many testimonies after testimonies of women, whether Christian or not, but especially we're concerned about the Christian side, where they, for a season, ended up getting attracted to some douchebag that really is just bad. But for a season, because he really liked the woman, he was attracted to her, became like a prince, charming, and was really all like nice and stuff to her. And then they end up marrying. She ends up, giving herself to him, and then like they end up marrying. And it's just a horrendous marriage. I'm not saying that was the case here, because during this time, parents were much more involved normally, especially the father, because the father, obviously, not only is he older, but as a man, he can like pierce through any men. He's a man himself. And so he knows what kind of man to give my daughter to, my precious, precious daughter to. And I'm thinking it's very likely the fact that he's so wealthy, during this time, the fathers were much more involved, as it's supposed to be the case, much more involved in the children's marriage. And it's definitely, I would say it's likely that the dad, the parents, because of the fact that he's so wealthy, and by the way, this is common too, especially I think more the Asian side, where there's such a thing of honor of the household, and like I want my kid to get married to some guy or some girl that's wealthy, especially if it's a daughter, some guy that's really wealthy. This is so common, but he's a real, just terrible, not good guy. But yeah, just this is unfortunately very common. You see that very thing here where The woman is much just solid, but the man is just horrendous. And yeah, but so even the servant can plainly tell her that he's a son of worthlessness. And yeah, and then 18, then Abigail made haste and took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep already dressed, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, 200 cakes of figs, loaded them on donkeys. And she said to her servants, "Go on before me. See, I'm coming after you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. Of course, she wouldn't have told this husband. I mean, you can totally understand the situation. Now, she's being very, very wise. And, you know, she's in a situation where, like, the whole household can get wiped out. And again, this is wrong for David. But in his anger, he's about to just wipe out the whole household, all the servants and everything. And so she takes this wise move, and we're going to see more. The 20. So it was, as she rode on the donkey, that she went down by the hidden part of the mountain, and there were David and his men coming down toward her, and she met him. So she's stopping them right there. Now, David said, "Surely in vain I have protected all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belongs to him." And by the way, I mean, we know this even today, but especially like during this time and even the New Testament times, there is a basic thing of when you are shown such kindness, you pay back with kindness. I mean, that's something that like human beings just normally know. Like they even have the concept and language of karma and all that stuff. But yeah, so this was, sad. And then David says, "And he has repaid me evil for good. May God do so and more also to the enemies of David, if I leave one male of all who belongs to him by morning light." Okay, so this is pretty bad here. David had no right to, do this. And this is where this comes in. Men have a greater tendency to sin with anger. I think we all know that. It doesn't take too long to know that. Just with how God designed men to be and women to be, there are sins that women deal with more. Just something that comes into mind is like whether gossip or just talking about things that they shouldn't be. And by the way, this is kind of hinted at in the Bible even. And even the secular side, they say like the average man says like 10,000 words a day, and average woman says 20,000 words a day. But whether spreading rumors, I mean, if you look at Proverbs, again, Proverbs, it goes into like women that like talk too much, and like a wife that there's something. I'm sure you just remember, but it's better to live like in the corner of a house than a woman that like. So Proverbs 21:19. It's better to dwell in the desert than with a quarrelsome and angry woman. And there are a lot more, there are like, I think 2-3 more, or 1 or 2 more of this. So the tendency is, depending on the sex, man or woman, men deal with a sinful anger, I think, a lot more. The other day, one Christian man, he shared about how like when he drives, he's a Christian, but like when he drives, and there are some drivers that do dumb things, bad things, like negative, sinful language coming out of his mouth. He shared that, and that's just much more likely. And so there's a need to be very cautious. And here, David, in his anger in this situation, he's about to do this. And it is the case that, men don't just randomly out of nowhere just get angry for no reason. There's usually some kind of cause. But when there's that cause, you got to be very careful to make sure. I would say there is a okay, acceptable anger in a certain situation. Like when somebody does wrong, I would say there is okay anger versus there's sinful anger. And so we have to be careful. Now there's righteous anger, where you need to get angry. You should get angry about certain things. You hear a news report about, like, I saw one news report of some, probably a Muslim guy, where in Europe, like, he went around, like, stabbing kids or something, in a park in Europe. And the moment you hear that, it's like, what on earth is that? You get angry. That's good. If you don't get angry, something's wrong with you. But in other situations, just being careful of anger, especially men. So then, 23, now when Abigail saw David, she dismounted quickly. Look at this. I mean, I have this, like, kind of not highlighted, but marked here. Look at this whole section, okay? It's amazing how she conducts herself. Now when Abigail saw David, she dismounted quickly from the donkey, fell on her face before David, and bowed down to the ground. So she fell at his feet and said, "On me, my lord, on me, let this iniquity be." This is amazing. "And please let your maidservant speak in your ears, and hear the words of your maidservant." Now she would have known men's tendency to get angry, and look at how she just conducts herself and just brings resolution, or the solution. 25, "Please let not my lord regard this man of Belial, Nabal. Basically, I'm on your side. Yeah, he is worthless. Yeah, he's terrible. For as his name is, so he is. Nabal is his name." The word Nabal, the name, it means, like, fool or foolishness. So I don't know how on earth he got his name, but anyways. "And folly is with him. But I, your maidservant, did not see the young men of my lord whom you sent." So I wasn't there to see all that. I wasn't a part of that, his ridiculous bad decision making and stuff. 26, "Now therefore, my lord, as Yahweh lives and as your soul lives, since Yahweh has held you back from coming to," look at this, "since Yahweh has held you back from coming to bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hand." Look at this wisdom. "Now then, let your enemies and those who seek harm for my lord be as Nabal. And now this present which your maidservant has brought to my lord, let it be given to the young men who follow my lord." And she keeps calling him my lord, this respect thing. And see, when a woman, like, acts like this, it's like, how I shared when we were in Judges, this Samson, who's, like, stronger than me, remember? That strong man that can just, whip 1,000 people, and he can just almost destroy a country. Even with such a powerful man, how was he brought down? Through a woman. Delilah, through a woman, he was totally brought down, and he was captured by the Philistines through her. Well, similar to that, in this situation where, like, if Nabal and his household, like, they took up weapons and tried to fight, they're doomed. They're going to be wiped out. But through this one woman, the whole household gets saved. It's, again, like last time, the whole saying, I know last time I shared, like, a Korean saying. I thought it was a Korean saying, but I guess it's from, like, either another country or it came into Korea, but, like, saying this thing of, like, in marriage, the man is the head, but then the woman is the neck. That whole saying. But anyways, so yeah, 28. "Please forgive the trespass of your maidservant, for Yahweh will certainly make for my Lord an enduring house, because my Lord fights the battles of Yahweh, and evil is not found in you throughout your days." This is amazing. Like, she's, like, continually, like, kind of subtly implying, you're not going to do this. You're not going to do this evil. Like, this is wrong. But you notice how she doesn't say, "Hey, David, don't you know that murder is wrong? Like, you don't have the right cause to slaughter our household." She doesn't do that. Starting from verse 26 and on, she, like, subtly, hints at this thing of, you're about to do wrong. And so this is amazing wisdom. Like evil is not found in you throughout your days. Yeah. 29. Yet a man has risen to pursue you and seek your life, but the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living with Yahweh your God. These positive words to him. And the lives of your enemies he shall sling out as from the pocket of a sling. Maybe she's hinting at David and Goliath, that whole occasion, kind of like, reminding him, you remember, she would have heard. What Israelite wouldn't have heard of David and Goliath? Everyone would have known. Even other nations around would have heard about it. And so, she's probably, hinting at, remember, you even brought him down and how good you were and, that accomplishment of you, that kind of thing. And 30, and it shall come to pass when Yahweh has done for my Lord according to all the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you ruler over Israel, that this will be no grief to you, nor offense of heart to my Lord, either that you have shed blood without cause. I have this underlined. Or that my Lord has avenged himself. It's if you have this on your record, that's not going to be good. But it's going to be the case that you're not going to have such a negative thing on your record. But when Yahweh has dealt well with my Lord, then remember your maidservant. This is just any man that's a man, when they read this kind of conduct and this kind of speech thing, it's like he's melted. It's like wrath is gone. Anger is out the window. And 32, then David said to Abigail, Blessed is Yahweh God of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me, and blessed is your advice or discernment, and blessed are you, because you have kept me this day from coming to bloodshed, and from avenging myself with my own hand. For indeed, as Yahweh God of Israel lives, who has kept me back from hurting you, unless you had hurried and come to meet me, surely by morning light no males would have been left to Nabal. So David received from her hand what she had brought him, and said to her, Go up in peace to your house. See, I have heeded your voice and respected your person. So just this man with the army of 400, who's about to wipe out the household, with this woman. If this woman took up weapons and tried to fight them off, it probably wouldn't have worked. But by bowing down and her speech, that just kind of melted them in a way. They're just gone. Blessed are you, and you did the right thing, man. Look at your conduct. You totally kept me from doing this wrong thing, and may God bless you. And they leave. 36. Now Abigail went to Nabal, and there he was holding a feast in his house. I'm sorry, just one more comment. Just as we can see right there, I was supposed to just briefly say it. I know this would have just applied to married couples, but I've heard of this from a pastor that just wise conduct like this can really I'll just share what one pastor has said, okay? He's married, and when he comes home, let's say, and the house is kind of a mess, and just things are not taken care of, and the house is a mess, and he's tired, he's come from work, and when he gets home, he gets a little upset, and he kind of brings it up to the wife, honey, what's up here? If she starts fighting back, it's going to become a war. It's going to be bad. But on the other hand, if she conducts herself like Abigail right here, he gets such conviction. If the wife is quietly just explaining, honey, this thing came up and that thing came up, and I'm sorry there's no dinner prepared, but just I had this stuff going on, and so please forgive me. When she acts like that, he talks about how he goes back, he goes outside to his backyard, and he beats himself up. And the point is, the right thing to do is not fighting back. Basically, the other side is expecting you to like fight back, but when you respond in such a gentle and just quiet, like calm way, just explaining your situation, the other side, they have nothing to say. And they just get quieted down by your conduct. And now we need to know when that applies and when that doesn't, but it's just such a word of wisdom. And yeah. So 36. Now Abigail went to Nabal. It doesn't even say husband, but to Nabal. And there he was, holding a feast in his house. Now, think about this. This man, he had just, he knew about David and his army, and he like shooed them off that way, but he had a feast in his house. Just no problem. He's just fine. So it shows how just bad he is, how dumb and bad he is. So he had a feast in his house, basically a party, like a feast of a king. And Nabal, his heart was merry within him. He was very drunk. Therefore, she told him nothing, little or much, until morning light. So she's wise. Again, she doesn't go to him railing, hey, husband, you know what was about to happen? He was about to come and kill you, wipe you all out. But guess what? I saved you. Like, none of that. She knows better. She knows that in this kind of state that he's in, nothing's going to work. So she waits until morning. 37. So it was in the morning, when the wine had gone from Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him. So when he's sober now, when he's like, the wine had gone now, he can actually listen and understand. She reported what had happened. He came with 400 armies, like about to wipe you out, the whole house. So he hears that and his heart died within him, and he became like a stone. And then it happened after about 10 days that Yahweh struck Nabal and he died. So just real quick, the whole thing of vengeance is mine, I will repay. David's whole situation is where he had a chance to kill Saul. Almost a justifiable cause, reason, basis to kill Saul, the king, where he was, in the cave, and he killed him, but he didn't do it himself. And that principle, that thing is found in the Old and New Testament of vengeance is mine, I will repay. That's found in Romans 12 also. I can just read Romans 12 real quick. At the end of Romans 12, 12:14. Bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice, and weep with those who weep. Be of the same mind toward one another. Do not set your mind on the high things, but associate with the humble. Do not be wise in your own opinion, or don't be conceited. 17. Repay no one evil for evil. Have regard for good things in the sight of everyone. If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all people. Beloved, do not avenge yourselves, but rather give place to wrath. For it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. But if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him a drink. For in so doing, you will heap coals of fire on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Guys, all throughout this, 2 Samuel, or 1 Samuel, the second half this year, with David's situation, many times you see this, but this thing of, as Christians, this so applies where don't repay back yourself. It's sin, but let God take care of it. I'm pretty sure I have testimonies, I just can't really recall them, but situations where, yes, there are times where let's say some coworker or somebody, they're doing wrong and you bring it up to them. That's one biblical thing, Matthew 18:15 and on. Or, at work, someone's violating the law or something, you have to report it. That's not that, okay? But certain situations where, see, this is where the Bible comes in. You have to know when this applies. because there's so many different principles, elements, aspects, and things. But in this kind of situation with David, he was not supposed to do that. Yes, he showed kindness, but he was, really like insulting him. He was supposed to just leave it up to God. This was clearly wrong. You notice God just took care of it. God killed Nabal. He died. So, yeah, this is quite huge for Christians. This really applies when Christians are persecuted by unbelievers, where you don't pay back. You say, God, I know you are my God. You take care of me, and I'm not going to repay evil for evil. I just look to you. And if anything, you just pity them, and you even show kindness to them. So, yeah, quite important. 39. So when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be Yahweh, who has pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal, and has kept his servant from evil. For Yahweh has returned the wickedness of Nabal on his own head. And David sent and proposed to Abigail to take her as his wife. When the servants of David had come to Abigail at Carmel, they spoke to her, saying, David sent us to you to ask you to become his wife. Then she arose, bowed her face to the earth, and said, Here is your maidservant, a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord. And so, just, a little bit of background, when somebody becomes a widow, in most of, I think, human context history, it's very difficult. And as we know, even in the first century during the church period, widows were to be taken care of by the church because they were in the most difficult situation. And so with the husband dead, David, obviously completely attracted to her with the situation she's in, he sends proposal, and she becomes his wife. And then 42, so Abigail rose in haste, rode a donkey, attended by 5 of her maidens, and she followed the messengers of David and became his wife. David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and so both of them were his wives. But Saul had given Michal, his daughter, David's wife, to Palti, the son of Laish, who was from Galim. So just a quick little thing. I know sometimes people ask the question about polygamy, and like David and Abraham or whoever else comes up, Solomon, whoever. When it comes to polygamy itself, it was a culture around that time, and it shows how you're so influenced by your culture. God never endorsed or whatever polygamy. You see the model marriage in Genesis 2 of one man, one woman, and for kings, it was all the more made clear, Deuteronomy 17, that kings were not supposed to have many wives. There's a specific law. And so you have to know that just because some people did it doesn't mean it was right. I mean, David committed adultery and murdered. That wasn't right. He had many wives. That wasn't right. He was actually violating the law. So yeah, that's that. But we can quickly go to John 9. So John 9, after verse 5, remember yesterday, neither this man, the blind man, neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. The night is coming when no one can work. As long as I'm in the world, I'm the light of the world. When Jesus had said these things, he spat on the ground and made clay with the saliva, and he anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay, and he said to him, Go wash in the pool of Siloam, which is translated sent. So he went and washed and came back saying, Therefore the neighbors and those who previously had seen that he was a beggar said, Is not this he who sat and begged? Some said, This is he. Others said, No, but he just looks like him. He said, I am he. Therefore they said to him, How were your eyes open? So, if you think about the situation, just a little bit of background. Today in our time here, there are a lot of homeless people that sit with signs and stuff. Most of them are totally capable of working. And like, yeah, but in this time period, you can probably recall Acts chapter 3 also, where there was a man who was lame. Remember, Peter supernaturally healed him in Acts chapter 3? You notice how people that beg, they have a physical issue. This man was blind. That's why he's a beggar. In this time period, when you're able to work, you worked. Whether you went, like in Matthew like 20 or so, there are people that are standing around and they want work and they get hired for the day to work in the vineyard or something or the field or something. It was like that. And so my point is, the beggars are those who are not physically capable. They have some kind of disability or something. I'm just making a simple point that, yeah, there are things to be considered. And when it comes to the context we have, the helping out with the poor and stuff, like the widows, the orphans, these beggars, like they had a justifiable cause. So it's just when people that are kind of ignorant of the background, they point to the Bible about, yeah, helping out the poor and the weak and all that stuff. You have to know some background. These are not lazy bums who are like, all kinds of different stuff because of their own, like, their choices of becoming alcoholics, drug addicts, out in the street and begging for money and then, all that stuff. So I'm just sharing that info. So in the Bible, when you see these beggars, they have a justifiable cause. And so they recognize him. Like, he isn't he that beggar? But they knew that he was blind, but he's walking around, he sees. So obviously this is a big deal. They're wondering. And so 10, they said to him, "How are your eyes open?" And he answered and said, "The man called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes and said to me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' So I went and washed, and I received sight." Then they said to him, "Where is he?" He said, "I don't know." So Jesus had sent him away. Now it's interesting that Siloam it means sent. Well, Jesus sent him away, and he was just gone. And after washing, his eyes were open. 13. They brought him who formerly was blind to the Pharisees. Now it was a Sabbath when Jesus made clay and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also asked him again how he had received his sight, and he said to him, "He put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and I see." Therefore some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God, because he does not keep the Sabbath." You see the Sabbath issue? Already in chapter 5, the Sabbath issue came up. And we know from the Synoptic Gospels also, the Sabbath issue was like the main issue that became an issue between Jesus and the Pharisees and scribes, religious authorities, because like I shared, they knew that Sabbath was really important. That's true. But they made extra laws, not in the Bible, to like, as a parameter to guard the whole, keeping of the Sabbath law. And according to that, Jesus was breaking that. And so they say he can't be from God because he doesn't keep the Sabbath, like their version. Others said, "How can a man who is a sinner do such things, do such signs?" And there was a division among them. So with the time, I'll just kind of end it here. The important thing is, you need to discern correctly. See, these Pharisees, based on the fact that Jesus was not keeping the Sabbath according to their interpretation, their version, they were concluding he can't be from God. Verse 16. And we have to have discernment, because it is true, based on like Deuteronomy 13 and other things, just because somebody has supernatural signs, like in Deuteronomy 13 it says, if somebody shows you a sign or a wonder, basically they even have some supernatural thing that they do, or let's say even a prophetic thing, like something they say it comes to pass. You can read Deuteronomy 13 and see it. But then when you check their doctrine, when you check what they teach, it doesn't align with the Bible, it's false teaching, then don't regard that person as a prophet of God. somebody that's sent from God, even when they have some supernatural thing. But here, they see a good supernatural thing, blind eyes being open and other supernatural things, lame walking, etc. Remember John 5? But based on their interpretation of the Bible, they judge him to be false. He's not from God. And this is a whole big topic of how to discern carefully, because there are people who have signs and wonders, but they're dangerous. They're like false ministers, dangerous. And there are people that may be of God, they're true Christians, but their doctrine is slightly off, but we can't exclude them, say, oh, he's not a Christian there because he's off on this doctrine. So we just have to be careful with our discerning. So, all right, any thoughts, questions? All right, I'll pray and we'll get going. So, Lord, thank you for your word. Just getting to see David and Abigail, David's shortcoming. At that response of Nabal, David taking it in his own hands, about to slaughter the whole household. The anger that I deal with at times, and men tend to deal with, and other sins that women tend to deal with more. May we be cautious, and may we see biblical beauty, biblical character, men and women, and learn from your word. And help us to have discernment, Lord, in this day and age where we have all kinds of stuff on the internet, all kinds of things around us. May we have proper discernment. In Jesus' name.